Hello everybody, I am not dead yet, and do you like the new location? I was talking to the Iron Musket over video call, and he said that this background was way better than the one that I usually use and that I should start filming here. If you like it, let me know and I'll start filming here. Anyway, before we get this video underway, I would like to shout out my 4 Patreon supporters, them being Trudy Dyke, Daniel Barrios, Tom Lazoric, and Justin Hightower. Thank you very much. If you would like to support me on Patreon, go check out the links in my description. All of the ways to support me will be there, including PayPal and affiliates. Before this video starts, I would also like to shout out again Skybox Designs, who did my channel banner. It is beautiful. I love it. It took a lot of work, and if you want to buy or check him out or do whatever, he will also be linked in my description. Now, what am I doing today? Well, I am reacting to Chris Heria and Jesse James West because they recently did some boxing in their latest collab on Jesse's channel. Now, these are two people I have talked about before in the past, and I've been rather critical. However, I do believe that people can grow and get better, and I do believe in giving credit where credit is due. It's been months since I've last talked about these guys, and, well, let's just see whether they've improved, haven't improved, and what my thoughts are on the things that they say. So, I've already seen this video, I've kind of skimmed through it, I have an idea of what I'm going to say, but I haven't really seen it all, so without further ado, let's get right into it.
Oh wow, this is where like you kind of workout stuff. This is all about timing, bro. There you go. Yeah, that boy's a natural. Okay. Respect.
So what they're doing is known as the bobble bag or the double end bag because you hang them on both ends, and Chris Heria is completely right here. I'm going to kind of gloss over Jesse because while he was making mistakes, things like flaring out his elbow, punching like this instead of turning his knuckles up to the sky, he wasn't really in a stance, and he seemed like he was just playing around. Heria, on the other hand, who actually looks a lot more fluid and a lot more comfortable than the last time I talked about him, which is great. You love seeing people improve. I do have a few critiques. And the main one being the fact that he tends to flare out his elbows in, for the goal of being a little bit faster and keeping up the rhythm. Now, that is something that you can get away with, and I'll show you what he's doing. What he was doing was, as opposed to keeping his elbow tucked like this and going straight in, straight out, right, he had his elbow flared out like this and was simply hinging at the elbow. And what this allows you to do is it does make the punch slightly faster because it has simply less distance to travel. It's traveling actually half the distance. You're only hinging at your elbow as opposed to hinging at your shoulder and the elbow, right? But what that does is, one, it takes away a little bit of the power, and two, it makes it generally a little bit less safe because as your elbow is out, as you can see, my body is open. So it is something that taller fighters generally can get away with, especially when using it to set up other punches, but I would really only use it as for a double jab, as opposed to something rhythmic like he was doing, something on the lines of right? And even then, I tend to prefer, because I'm a shorter fighter, to full-blown full distance jabs for my double jab. But and the reason for that being is because, especially if you're a taller fighter, if you get into a rhythm like that, the more rhythmic you get, the easier it is to counter you. And the longer you have your elbow flared out like that, the easier it is going to be for a shorter fighter to slip that punch and dig in a nice body shot to your kidneys and make you piss blood. So you don't want that, and I would recommend switching it up a little bit, and at the very least retracting his elbow back to his size to keep him safe. He's also 5'9", which isn't super tall. He's taller than some people. He's 2 inches taller than me, but he's not quite something like 6'2", where the vast majority of people you fight will either be your height or shorter. So that speed technique isn't quite as useful, especially if you're trying to get in. You can adapt it, especially if you aim upward and go, but again, when I'm pressing forward, I do tend to try to keep myself a little bit safer. But again, it really depends on what your boxing style actually is. If it works for you, I encourage you to do it. So I noticed that Chris Heria was flaring out the elbows on his right arm as well. This is known as chicken winging. We call it that because when a boxer flares out both elbows on either side of his body, he looks like a chicken flapping his wings. This is dangerous for the exact same reason mentioned for the left hand. However, it becomes doubly dangerous because you have your entire body exposed. At least when he was just flaring out his left elbow, he still, or at least I thought he still had his right elbow in tight, protecting his body. This is not the case.
So we're doing a little boxing training. It's so funny that you guys watch me do this stuff. I suck at boxing, but you still watch. So I appreciate you for that.
Hey, at least he admits it.
Try a little bit of Chris's training, see how it goes. Maybe I'll just develop some tattoos all over my body throughout this, but we'll see.
Again, so right now I can already tell. Elbows in. His elbows are flared out by his sides. And he's very stiff. But, I mean, Chris Heria looks a lot better, actually. I wish they would show a little bit more than just the jab cross. That was a decent dig.
Quick.
So, Chris Heria seems a lot more fluid than the first time I saw him. If you remember back then, he seemed very, very stiff. He's clearly improved, which is something you love to see.
Dude, quick. This guy looks like an animal. I would never want to fight you.
No, come on, bro.
He looks like an animal to people who don't know how to fight. To people who know how to fight, he's a decent beginner.
And Chris is going to take me through a little bit of the ropes, teach me some tips.
I'm just a beginner.
See, he even admits it. He admits it. Great.
I had a fight already lined up.
Yeah.
But the opponent backed out 2 weeks before fight day.
Gotcha.
So now we're just in the works. It's really complicated. There's a lot of things that go with it, like money and like contracts and like finding the person that would actually accept it. I have something planned for November. We're gonna set something up for November. Hopefully, we get somebody on board.
I mean, of course it wouldn't happen. But I mean, I can dream, right?
Let's do it, baby!
So the bag is to get you to your distance, because when someone's moving around, it's to get you comfortable and understanding distance. So when someone's here, you know exactly where to punch. Sometimes people will punch right here and they're too crowded. So hitting a bag will teach you how to footwork, how to maneuver around something. Also, you can use it to focus on power.
That is very true. Yes, 100% correct. Good job, Chris. Yeah, so the heavy bag is mainly used for distance, and he mentions smothering your own punch, that being, that meaning that you punch too short, you punch not at the optimal distance, not at your full extension, and you take away the vast majority of your power, because the vast majority of a punch's power comes from the snap at the end of a punch. So, what smothering a punch essentially is stopping the punch before it even gets off the ground. If you're too close and you stop a punch here, there's absolutely no power. And so, tip for those of you that are shorter fighters looking to get in on taller fighters, sometimes stepping back is a negative thing. Because when you step back, you allow the taller fighter to just simply take another step forward and continue to hit you with their full extension. Sometimes, if you are fighting someone taller than you, the best option is to get your hands up and charge at the punch and smother it here. Smother it right here before you can even throw that jab, or right here before you can even throw that cross. It will have zero power. If you take it on your arms, it won't hurt you, and then you'll be on the inside. That is the concept of smothering a punch. And so what the heavy bag does is it helps teach you not only to not smother your punches, but also not to overextend your arm too. Sometimes if you're too far away and you're really reaching, when you miss, you fall forward. That's bad too, and simply overextending your arm can hurt you a lot. I overextended my arm by accident in the Nationals, as well as getting punched in the bicep, and because of that, my arm was partially paralyzed. I still won the fight, but again, it hurt a lot. My whole arm was super stiff, and I was having a lot of trouble kind of bending it after the match, and I had to take a really long bath in Epsom salts to make it feel better. So again, the bag helps you gauge distance, but again, like you said, it's also good for focusing on power, as opposed to the bobble bag, which is focused on speed. So again, really good information. Good job, Chris.
Right there.
That was a slap. You can tell by the way it landed on the bag that it wasn't a solid punch with the knuckles. He slapped it like this. That's illegal in boxing. It can damage your hand. I'm gonna kind of go, I'm not going to spend too much time on Jesse because it's clear that he doesn't practice it, and it's clear that Chris has, so that's kind of what I'm going to focus on for the rest of this video. I'll give quick tips, but it's not going to be anything insane.
Too much arm.
That was a little bit better. You can see that Jesse, when he said too much arm, he turned and he actually was able to kind of go up and dig his fist over top and actually land a solid hook like this. Good job, Jesse. He probably, I couldn't see his feet, but I would probably say that he didn't twist his foot and hinge at his hips, and he could get a lot more power doing that. He mainly kind of stood like this and twisted at the top. If he would have twisted his foot at the bottom, as well as turned his hips, he'd get a lot more power.
That was too much arm.
Chris Heria's foot movement is a lot better.
He's gonna knock.
It's kind of funny, you missed it. He overextended his hook. But that's because he was aiming for the bag and it swung out of the way and he almost kind of fell over. That happens actually to even experienced fighters. I remember one time I was at a club and we were doing a drill very similar to this where it was two people per bag, and I was hitting the bag and I punched the bag out of the way of my partner's fist, and his fist kept going and punched me in the face. So like that actually does happen, just because you're aiming for something and miss and you whiff a shot and you throw yourself off balance. Even experienced boxers, that happens to even experienced boxers.
Never done anything like this. A lot more meticulous in like small minuscule things that I would have never guessed to learn, but it's quite fun.
That's what I've been saying this entire time. Like, everyone thinks boxing is all get too, I'm tough, you're tough, let's get in there and beat each other into submission. It's not that. I've always considered boxing to be a dance. And I dance between two people. It's a beautiful mix of brutality and elegance. And there's a lot more meticulous and minute things that people just simply don't recognize. I'm pretty sure that is it for the boxing segment, though, and if it is, I'm going to just make sure, and I'll be back to close up.
Shut the f up and sit there.
Okay, so we're back. What he is doing, and I know he's kind of goofing around, but I do want to draw attention to this. What he is doing is called pawing the bag. He is going out, and he's bringing his hand back, and then bringing it back to your face. He's pawing it like a cat, as opposed to going straight in, straight out, like this. That is something a lot of new people do when they first start out boxing. So if you are new to the sport, pay very close attention to what you're doing, and the best way to correct that is to stand in front of a mirror, watch yourself, and just throw punches like this, and make sure you're going straight in, straight out, straight in, straight out. I noticed that my thumb was there. That is a mistake. Thumb here, straight in, straight out, like that. And so, if you're having trouble bringing your hand back to your face, a quick tip you can do is grab onto your earlobes like this, hold on to them, and every time you throw a punch, bring them back and grab your earlobe again. And that was it for the boxing. So I'm actually very glad to say that Chris Heria has improved greatly since the last time I talked about him. He's giving out good information and good tips, despite the fact that I would like to see him box with a little bit less quick cuts to see how good he truly is. I'd place him at the high-level beginner. I'd still think he'd probably get hurt in sparring, just based on how stiff he is and how he moves. But again, he is improved immensely. I haven't seen him spar, and he does have another video up on his channel where he's doing boxing and Muay Thai. So I mean, maybe he's better than I think he is. Like, it's really hard to assess just how good somebody is with the small clips that I've received. But that's really just my assessment of the two of them. Remember, but that's really just my assessment of the two of them. So until next time, remember, only the strong subscribe. What do you think of that? I think it's pretty good. I might start adding that to my outro. It's like, only the strong survive, but subscribe because, YouTube and not dead yet, right? Anyway, only the strong subscribe, and I'm not dead yet. And if you are not either, there is always a tomorrow waiting for you.